In this episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief, I sit down with Josh to talk all about The Great Nameless, a game of divine might and cosmic horror. And going forward, it looks like we're going to be doing our Kickstarter corner after the interviews, as it seems that is what people would like. If you like it or don't like it, make sure you reach out to me at Getting Geeky with Game Relief on Facebook. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is proudly powered by 60 Second Chef. It's quick to learn, easy to play, and super fun. Plus, it'll help us get veggies in front of our kids on the tabletop. Who said they had to be edible? Want to know more? Go listen to my interview with one of the designers. Episode 255, Wishlist Wednesday on Saturday, 60 Second Chef. 60 Second Chef will be on Kickstarter through Friday the 22nd of March. This episode is powered by Heroes and Treasure, Darkness and Light campaign. The popular Heroes and Treasures family RPG expands with new maps, enemies, and treasures. Play it with your kids 4 years old and up, even your teens. It's a game we'd like to get to the table when we bring back Rolling with the Leaf. It'll be on Kickstarter through Tuesday the 12th of March, so if you want to bring your kids your love of role-playing games, definitely check out Heroes and Treasure, Darkness and Light campaign. This episode is powered by Kyle Cottonbrooks and his character casket. He created multiple accessories all in one kit, affordable prices, and it's convenient for you. Think of a corpse for your dice and minis. It's on Kickstarter through Monday the 15th of April. This episode is powered by Robotech Crisis Point. Pre-order it now. In case you missed it, go back and give my last episode entitled Robotech Crisis Point a listen to find out a bit more. So, go watch the anime on Amazon or Netflix and then pre-order the game before May. Or before they run out. So don't dilly-dally. When they're gone, they're gone. Find it by clicking the link in my show notes. Reminder, show notes can now be found on my website, GameReliefGo.com. Just click the link on your podcast catcher and it'll get you there. This episode is powered by Heroes of History. For listeners of the show, you can get a 10% rebate on the game by emailing Sam at bradensworld.com with a copy of your receipt, and he'll get you that 10% off in a rebate form. And for the first 10 listeners to leave an Amazon or eBay review, he'll also send you an extra 5% rebate. So visit bradensworld.com. This episode is powered by The Great Nameless, a game of divine might and cosmic horror, which the publisher can probably even do more justice. Future Lake coming to you. I was drawn to this game based upon the story during their Kickstarter video, as well as their being first-time board game creators. I wanted to point out, however, that this is more game than anything, and not like being in Sunday school. Also, while the characters are referred to as fiction during our interview, I am a proud believer in Christ, being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints myself. So, without further ado, here is my interview with Josh, already in progress.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
In the beginning, there was only Zatzul. Without a mind and without a body, it is an endless storm of matter and energy, constantly creating and destroying. But sometimes the matter it created would become infused with energy, gaining life and sentience. The first of these beings at birth had godlike powers of their own. They were known as the Excubiae. Soon the Excubiae understood the threat that their creator posed and agreed to seal their realms away from Zatzul's chaos in the void of Primo Regnae. But with fleeting safety came restlessness, and the Excubiae soon turned on one another. Jehovah created Are, and within Are he created his angelic heavenly host. He fell in love with the excubier Lilith, and together, in her home, Eden, they created mankind, beginning with Adam and Eve. This angered his firstborn angel, Lucifer, who convinced the first humans to disobey their creators and eat the forbidden fruit. Jehovah, angered, banished Adam and Eve to Primo Regni to be subsumed by Zexul. Lilith was filled with rage. She banished Jehovah from Eden and opened the gate to Primo Regni, corrupting herself and her home. She now yearns for vengeance against both Jehovah and Lucifer, but mostly, she just wants to be reunited with her children. Carniphus never enjoyed the company of the other excubier, and after slaying the youngest of their brethren, Pure Hoste, was never cursed with their presence again. He filled his days by torturing his subjects and hatching plots to attack his siblings. Then, when Lucifer fell from the skies of Are to the hellish basement of Lacerandum, he had his chance. Together with Lucifer, Carniphus created an army of demons and plans to march against all the other excubier. Euthrasa was born with a thirst. Not only a thirst for knowledge, but a thirst to learn everything. She created Septrum, with galactic libraries and enlightened denizens. But when Carniphus slayed her baby brother, she turned her efforts towards military strategy. The technology her armies now bring to bear is staggering, and she has her sights set squarely on Lacerandum. And through it all, Zexul builds and grows within Primo Regni, birthing demigods who command armies of horrors. It has even formed a physical avatar, capable of single-handedly crushing the seals designed by the excubier and destroying their realms that lie beyond. This avatar is known only as the Great Nameless. Now it is awake and moves with purpose.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me either, but this is the story of The Great Nameless, a game of divine might and cosmic horror. And tonight we're lucky enough to have on one of the creators and masterminds behind this game. Is that correct, Josh? Is that how you fall in line with The Great Nameless?
Yeah, I'm the designer of the game.
Awesome. Now, before we jump into that, let's rewind a little bit. How did you get into playing tabletop board games?
Well, really, the gateway for me was probably like a lot of other people. It was Dungeons and Dragons whenever I was a kid. And my parents bought me the little red box set when I was about 8 years old, and that just kind of started a cascading effect. My brothers and I played a lot of role-playing games, and those eventually led into playing, more and more in-depth tabletop board games until about 4 or 5 years ago, whenever I decided I wanted to try my hand at designing.
Cool. Did you get into what they call hobby games? Like you said, you were playing the other heavier into board games. What games did you play board game wise?
Like a lot of kids, I played, kind of the regular Candyland and Monopoly and all that kind of stuff. And then about the time I got into middle school and high school, it was on to things like Hero Quest.
Hero Quest. Deep inside another dimension, face battling barbarians and evil magic on a quest for adventure in a maze of monsters. This is Hero Quest, the fantasy adventure game where winning means mastering the arts of combat.
I'll use my broadsword.
And magic.
Fire of Wrath.
Once you get into it, you'll never be the same. Hero Quest. Now, with 2 new adventure packs, the legend grows.
I think that was probably really the first one because it was so much like Dungeons and Dragons. That was kind of what led me into playing more of the hobby stuff. And then, of course, discovering Settlers about 10 years ago or so. That was a big one too. And that just kind of led into the sort of explosion that we've had of hobbyist board games ever since.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So what are you playing hobby board game wise these days, Josh?
I've got a table full of them. I was actually taking pictures and putting it on Instagram the other day. The one that I always kind of come back to whenever I'm playing with friends, it's been around a while, but Sentinels of the Multiverse is the one that kind of just always ends up hitting the table every time we get a chance. But There's a game that I backed on Kickstarter a few years ago that we play an awful lot of called Eschaton, and it's sort of a deck builder area control hybrid. And but we've got Pandemic Legacy, and we still play Descent. There's just it just kind of depends on the crowd that we've got, but sometimes we'll just throw a little box game down like Guillotine or Bang or something like that. But we play a pretty wide array of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Do you have a favorite game mechanic?
I think it has a lot more for me to do with synergy than a specific mechanic. I like a game where everything just sort of fits together. I think a genre that I have a lot of fun with are deck builders, but they're like anything else. Sometimes they're well executed, and sometimes they're not. But I still think it's kind of hard to beat Dominion in terms of deck builders. We've played a ton of Ascension over the years too. Um, but no, I think it has more to do with how cohesive the game is as a whole.
Cool. And it also sounds like depending on the group you're playing with as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got a few friends that are pretty hardcore and they like to play a game for 3 hours, and then I've got friends that would rather slap something down on the table and play 20 minutes and move on to another thing, or play 3 games in a row or something. And so I think it has a lot to do with who's there and how much fun are they going to have with the game that we're going to break out.
Yeah, most definitely. You probably don't want any table flipping.
Yeah. Yeah, luckily I've got a heavy enough table that's hard to do.
Oh, there you go. So you thwart them in any desire of doing that, I guess.
Right.
Would you say you have a favorite game, or it just really varies on who you're playing with?
It really does vary. I mean, I threw a few of those, a few out. I think Sentinels is a great one. Dominion's a great one. Descent, like all three of those are sort of all timers. All of those games I've had for a long time and still play. So I think they've had a lot more longevity than a lot of things do.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I haven't played any of those, but I'm a big fan of deck builders. I like the Star Realms and Cthulhu Realms, and then I like the tableau building as well, like Machi Koro and Valeria Card Kingdoms. I don't know if you've played any games like those.
I don't know that I've played Star Realms, but I'm not sure if I've played any of the others.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there's so many games out there. And speaking of being so many games out there, there's also so many games on Kickstarter, especially these days. Speaking of that, you actually created a game and put it on Kickstarter. What can you tell us about the Great Nameless, a game of divine might and cosmic horror, Josh?
The Great Nameless came from my brother and I actually are partners in Winter Night Games, and the reason we formed the studio was to make a video game, which we released last year, and that game is called Archangel: The House of the Seven Stars, and it's on Steam, and it's a kind of an old school point and click adventure game that's got it's a horror game, and it has this kind of mythology that we cooked into the background of it. So you're walking around the game and you're reading books off bookshelves, and you kind of get little hints and flavor and texture and everything like that that fill in the cracks of what's going on in the game. And as we were building out that mythology, my brother asked if I would be interested in taking that bigger story and turning it into a tabletop game, and that's what the Great Nameless is. So, kind of the thematic pitch on the game is, it started with we both were big fans of kind of Judeo-Christian horror, and we were also big fans of Lovecraftian horror, and we thought it would be fun to mash those up. And so the central question of the game is, what if God existed, and what if something bigger create a god, and what if that thing was malicious? And so we kind of expanded it out from there, and we created other gods that created other dimensions. And that's what the Great Nameless is. Or the players represent these four different kind of sibling gods, and they're playing against the center of the table, which represents Zexul, which is the kind of uber god that gave birth to all of them and is now threatening them all.
Oh, okay. Because when I was watching your Kickstarter video, I got a lot of Christian and stuff from Christian lore and different things in regards to the video. It seemed like there was a lot of stuff there based in belief of Christian belief and stuff and whatnot.
Yeah, there's kind of one of the gods players can uh, one of the gods that the players can represent is Jehovah, who's it's kind of the Old Testament version, um, and then there's Lilith who created Eden, and Carniphus who created what's a different name for hell, and Uthrasa who's got this sort of high technology dimension that's a lot more sci-fi flavored than the other ones are.
And I think it's in the video, there's Lucifer as well.
Yeah, so kind of in the fiction, Lucifer was banished to hell by Jehovah, and so he fell to this other dimension, which is called Lacerandum, and made a pact with the god there, who's named Carniphus. And so Lucifer and Carniphus are working. They've created this army of demons, and they're kind of enacting this plan of revenge against all the other gods.
Yeah, it sounds kind of interesting. So, yeah, I've never heard of the other ones. Are they, do they exist in like Judea? Or what about the Lilith and the Urethra and Carniphus? I never heard of those names.
Yeah, most of them are. I mean, we've made them up. They Some of them, drew inspiration from other religions and stuff like that. But uh, we kind of wanted to put a different twist on some stuff that we had read before. Um, but the overall feel of the game actually kind of approaches like Greek mythology, because you've got these, you know, there's all this drama between the gods. You've got this infighting, and there's sort of this super powerful other that's threatening all of their existence, which is kind of like the Titans in Greek mythology, and it's our own kind of uh, slant on the fiction, but it's kind of similar themes.
Okay, and I kind of get it's kind of the feel that I get from where Supernatural's lore has gone, kind of as well. The TV show. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I've seen bits and pieces of it here and there, and I think that's one of the things that's great about that show is that they do take kind of existing fiction and they give it their own spin. I like that.
Per se, me and you sat down to play The Great Nameless. What's my turn going to look like, Josh?
Regular player's turn in the Great Nameless is you will flip the top card of the Primo Regni deck, which is the deck in the center of the table that kind of threatens all the players. Um, you'll resolve the card that flips, and sometimes those are events that it's just a thing that happens. It's usually not a good thing. Or it might be an entity, which the entity will come into play and then march into your doom track, which if you look at the way that the game is set up on the table, there's a hexagon in the middle of the table, and there are these kind of tentacles that come out from the hexagon, and then player boards at the end of the tentacles. And the hexagon is Primo Regni, the tentacles are the doom tracks, and the player boards are the player's realms. So these creatures will march down the doom track toward the realms, and it's in the player's best interest to stop them from making it to their realm. But that'll be the first thing that happens on the turn. Then you'll draw a couple of cards, and you'll have a number of actions you can take. Some of them are printed on cards that you already have in play. You can play 2 cards out of your hand. You have 4 different types of cards in your deck, and they don't cost anything, but the restriction is you can only play 2 cards and they can't be 2 of the same type. So you can't play 2 events or 2 entities or 2 artifacts. Um, and you play those cards, you move them around the board, you attach artifacts to your entities to make them more powerful, and you can engage in combat with these entities that are marching down your doom track, or you can hop over to other players' realms and you can stir up trouble with them too. Um, so after that action phase, you'll resolve any combat that may happen in your turn, and then you'll move into an end phase, which essentially is just discarding cards if you're holding too many, and then the round passes to the next player's turn.
Okay, so this sounds interesting. So, if I understand correctly, am I playing against the game as well as the other players in the game? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Um, there are times where you'll have to team up with other players. You can kind of make deals with each other. I'll protect you this turn, but you have to do this in the next turn. But ultimately, you are looking to be the winner of the game. And the way that you win the game is you can collect seals, and you can place these seals. Like if you place enough seals on the board, you'll automatically win the game. If not, there's another way to win the game, which is just simply to collect the most victory points. And you can get victory points by playing cards and by defeating others in combat. And after a player reaches the victory point goal for the game, you finish the round, and then there's post completion scoring that happens. And you'll get a bunch more points for having entities that are still in play that have survived, and for any seals that you have in play and stuff like that. So you'll you'll make a run on points, and then whenever you get to the pre-agreed goal for it, there's a flurry of scoring that happens after that. So you may be the first person to hit the goal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to end the game with the most points.
Okay, awesome. And it looks like every card does something different. There's a lot of text on the card. Am I right?
Yeah, there are. So the way that the game plays, I took some inspiration from some old CCGs and things like that. So it plays, not that the rules are the same as Magic, but I kind of took that as an inspiration that you play these cards and they have abilities and they have things that happen when they first come into play, or they might have something that happens when they're destroyed. And there is a lot of text on the cards, but a lot of that text is flavor text as well, because we wanted to tell a story with the game too. Um, but you're right. There are not every card is unique, but there are no more than 2 of any given card in the deck. So there are, in most decks, 15 or 20 different cards, and because the game's asymmetrical and the gods all play differently from one another, their decks are unique to them. So Jehovah's deck looks completely different than Carnific's deck does.
Okay, good. So it's going to play different. Like if I choose to be a different character or whatnot.
That's correct. Yeah, they play very different from each other.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, we prefer much more asymmetrical games around here, especially the combat games and whatnot. Now, when it comes to the Great Nameless, what would you say you're most proud of, Josh?
I think for me, what I was the most pleased with when it all came together um, was sort of the physical design of it, where the graphic design and the board layout all fit in with the theme. And I think the game kind of looks like a monster when it's laid out on the table. And I always get a lot of compliments about that whenever I'm demoing it. And I think that's a thing that I genuinely um, feel some pride about.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, it does kind of look. It's got a certain table appeal looking at the Kickstarter page and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. Now, when it comes to your game, just because people might wonder, is it for Christians, non-Christians? What kind of audience are you going here for?
No, it's not. It's not a religious game by any means. It's we do feel like there's a certain amount of horror that can be mined from religion, but really, I think it's more about mythology than it is about religion specifically. Um, we liked the iconography of angels and demons, but that's why we mixed some of the other factions in there too to make sure that that wasn't what it's all about. And ultimately, there's that kind of Lovecraftian angle to it that ends up being bigger than any one god. Um, so it really came down to like the Christianity aspect of it really came down to more of a discussion about how we wanted that aesthetic to look, and we really liked the idea of sort of the warrior priests and the angels and things like that.
Oh, okay, so in case anybody had any qualms about that or whatnot, we can clear that up and they can know a little bit more about it. Now, did you go with the theme first or design the game and then the theme afterwards? How did you go about doing this?
I would say, I mean, it was definitely theme first because we were trying to engineer a game that was going to fit in with a pre-existing story that we had put together. So I definitely think that it was theme first, but really what cracked it open was one day I was sleeping and when I woke up, the first thought I had was the mechanic of kind of bad guys marching down these doom tracks toward each individual god. And then that's sort of what I scribbled that down on a piece of paper. And, after I had some coffee and stuff like that, I started actually fleshing it out. And I think that's really where it started to become a game, was that original mechanical germ, but the theme was already there before I ever dreamed that up.
Oh, okay, so that's awesome. Now, imagine after the theme came to you and you fleshed it out a little bit. I imagine there was quite a bit of play testing. During the play testing, was there ever anything you guys had to scrap because it just wouldn't work for the game?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, it was an kind of an unplayable mess for a few months. Actually, the game would always bog down, and it would become apparent that we weren't going to ever be able to finish in any kind of reasonable time. So, there were a lot of little mechanics that changed. We had things like, armor that you could add, but a lot of things that sounded cool. Whenever you went to execute, we realized all it did was complicate things, or all it did was slow things down. So there there was an iteration of the game where anytime you got in combat with the creatures from the center tile, you had to fight them all instead of it didn't always behave the same way. It used to have doom tokens would come down the doom track, and in order to beat back the doom tokens, you had to fight everything in the middle, and it just made the game too slow and it made it too overwhelming. And whenever it changed into these monsters pushing each other down the doom track and you could just fight a few at a time, I think it uh, mechanically works better, but I think from an illustrative standpoint it looks a little bit more like what it's supposed to represent. um, so the game went through at least a couple of big revisions, but we play tested it. I don't remember the exact number, but we play tested it over 500 times, and it's like the first several hundred times. I mean, we would change a card here and a card there, and tweak a mechanic, and uh, so the game has been blown apart and put back together twice, but it's been tweaked a ton too.
Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. Now, so you don't overpromise and underdeliver. Somebody goes ahead and they back it. When would they anticipate getting the great nameless?
What we have, we've got it targeted for a year out, and I'm hoping it goes quicker than that. But just like you said, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So our goal is to have it in spring of 2020. Um, I'd love it if it was in people's hands before Christmas. Um, but with it being the first effort, we definitely wanted to have enough time to make sure that if there's something we didn't anticipate, that we'd have enough time to recover from that and get people their games on time.
Okay, yeah, that's good. And it says certain countries. Which countries it will be able to get this game?
It is. We've got shipping tiers set up to go to the U.S., Canada, Mexico, and Europe.
And if other people are listening that maybe are interested in it, would they be able to contact you and see if they could possibly work something out? Or
Yeah, I'm sure we could. I think that the main reason for that is the way that Kickstarter sets up their shipping tiers. Unless you start breaking it down by every individual country in the world, it's difficult to apply a rate um, to to get it warehoused and shipped. And frankly, like some countries, it'll end up costing more to ship than the entire cost of the game. So I just sort of assumed that in those cases, people probably wouldn't be too interested in shipping costs that were that high.
and it looks like there's, if they're worried about that, there is a print and play that people can get for like $5. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And the print and play won't be watermarked. It'll be exactly the files that we intend to send to the printer. So everything that's in the full retail version of the game will also be in the print and play.
Would people that get the retail version, would they also get the print and play so they can play it sooner?
They do, yes. The retail version and the print and play tiers both include uh, some wallpaper art from the game, just digital art. Um, and there's a higher tier that also includes kind of the deluxe version of our video game, which also comes with the musical score to that video game, and those codes can be sent pretty much as soon as the campaign is over. So if they wanted something to tide them over before the Great Nameless ships, they'd have Archangel that they could play as well.
Okay, yeah, and we touched briefly upon that, but Archangel, what can you tell us about that?
Archangel is so it's a narrative game that takes place um, in 1900 in Frontier, Alaska, and it's about a family that moves from Boston to Alaska to settle the affairs of state of one of the members of the family, and the uh, the wife and mother Lily grew up in this little town called Haven, and she left when she was young. So she brings her family back after this tragedy, and they are trying to start a new life in this little town, and things don't really go their way. And again, the fiction of it ties in with a lot of this stuff from the Great Nameless. So you've got, kind of otherworldly horror. You have some more traditional uh, kind of horror that you would see in, you know, possessions and things like that that are sort of related to the Judeo-Christian horror as well as alien, strange Lovecraftian events and cults and things like that.
And they can get that on Steam?
Yep, that's on Steam, and it's Archangel. It's spelled Arkhangel.
Okay, and if you get me the links, I'll make sure I put them in the show notes so people can be able to click on over and find it easier. Now, when it comes to the great Nameless. What makes your game pop as one my audience should go check out the Kickstarter page, and if they like what they see, go ahead and back it.
Well, I guess, we went into the theme and we went into like the visual design of it, but I think mechanically the hook for the game is that it plays like a simpler version of some of those old CCGs that a lot of us cut our teeth on, but they combine those card interactions with movement on a board. Um, so you're tactically moving on a board and setting up your armies in position to head off incursion from two different directions. And so you kind of have tactical board position combined with these card interactions during combat and as you're setting up combat.
Okay, cool. And like I said, we'll make sure we leave all the links in the show notes so they can come and check it out and see if it be up their alley. Now, minus coming there to Kansas to stalk you personally, how would people go about keeping up with you and what you guys have going on over at Winter Night Games?
Well, we've got our site set up at winternightgames.com, but we're also on Facebook under Winter Night Games, and Instagram and Twitter also, and I can send you those links that can be put up with the show notes too.
Most definitely, yeah, we appreciate it. So, yeah, like I said, we don't want to keep you all night, but we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief with us to talk all about the great Nameless, a game of divine might and cosmic horror that'll be on Kickstarter through Sunday, the 31st of March. We really appreciate it, Josh.
Thank you, Blake.
No problem. That was awesome sitting down with Josh. I'm excited about his game. You know what else I'm excited about? To see what's on Kickstarter currently. Hit it, Princess Leaf.
What is this place? What is it doing here in the Leafs computer? Oh, it's Kickstarter Corner with the Leafs.
I'm so glad my cold didn't hit me until Wednesday, as Wizard Leaf and I were able to play Valeria Card Kingdom's base game before this cold ruined my life. So, I was glad to hear Daily Magic Games wanted to have me promote Valeria Card Kingdom's Crimson Seas. That's right, sail the lands beyond the borders of Valeria in Crimson Seas, the third full expansion to Valeria Card Kingdoms. The purpose of their Kickstarter is to produce not one, not two, but 3 products in this Kickstarter campaign. Crimson Seas, an expansion to Valeria Card Kingdoms. Ward Towers, Valeria Card Kingdom's expansion pack, and Corsairs of Valeria, a standalone dice game. Back it before Tuesday, the 26th of March. Note, it funded in 3 hours, by the way. Next, a game that funded in 6 hours, so still pretty quick there, is Fuzzy Mage Fight. It's a card game for 2 to 6 players. Play as fuzzy mages with unique abilities, fighting to become the most magical fuzzy mage ever. I have it on good authority that they'll be doing a giveaway with the Giveaway Geek. Just by being subscribed to my podcast, as I know you are, that's an extra entry into this giveaway. So make sure you look out for that. Check out their campaign and back Fuzzy Mage Fight before Wednesday the 27th of March. Did I mention that I love the art? If you liked any of these games mentioned during the episode or the interview, make sure you head on over to check out their campaigns. You can find them easily by checking on the show notes. Remember that the show notes are now just on my website, GameReliefGo.com. It's time for me to go rest and recuperate from this blast of cold, and you to hopefully get your game on. So until next time, get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others in the geek fold by sharing this episode with them. Gamer Leaf out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.